Yeah, we back with another interesting video. Now, not wasting no time, take a look up on the screen. We got a tweet from this brother that reads, in August 1960, the American government launched a covert political program in the Congo lasting almost 7 years, initially aimed at eliminating Patrice Lumumba from power and replacing him with a more moderate, pro-Western leader. Now, let's discuss that. I love these topics because I get to go in depth and give my perspective on the scenario, right? Now, unfortunately, most black men do not study history, so the concepts I'm going to discuss in today's video is going to be like speaking Chinese to a lot of brothers. But listen, I love to talk about this because I get to drive my point home about the fact that black men must understand that life is a competition on all levels, all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. Life is a competition. What they fed you as a child, talking about democracy, equality, they fed you that nonsense since you were like 5 years old. But let me tell you, bro, let me give you the reality check. All right. There's no such thing as equality. There's no such thing as democracy. There's no such thing as, let's all hold hands together. It's all one race, the human race. No, that's all fake. It's all propaganda. It's all bullshit. It's all fabricated. It's all a lie. They lied to you, bro. They lied. Now, let's talk about it, man. The decision by the United States government to launch a covert political program in the Congo during the mid-20th century was motivated by a number of factors. At the time, the Congo was a strategically important country during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States saw Congo as a strategic location in Africa. The United States was also motivated by economic interests in the Congo. The Congo was rich in natural resources, including copper, cobalt, uranium, among many others, which are of great value to the United States and other Western countries still to this day. It's no surprise that Congo is full of chaos and it's destabilized, and it's going to remain this way as long as the Western powers are still in power. Bet that. Now let's continue. During this time, the United States wanted to ensure that these resources remained under the control of pro-Western governments rather than falling into the hands of other regimes who may challenge their influence and dominance on the world stage. The United States saw Lumumba as a threat to its interests in the region. Lumumba was seen as a nationalist, and he was critical of Western influence in the continent. The United States saw Patrice Lumumba's removal from power as necessary to protect their interests in the region. And as we all know, this is nothing new. It still happens, still to this day, in the modern day. It will never stop because, like I said before, life is a competition. Equality does not exist. Democracy does not exist. Morality does not exist. It's all a myth. It's all fake. It's all bullshit. Now let's continue. Operations to switch regimes to a more pro-Western orientation are crucial to maintaining the power and dominance of the United States because it allows the United States to control the political developments inside these countries. By replacing leaders who are not aligned with U.S. interests with more pro-Western leaders, the United States can ensure that these countries remain loyal allies and that their resources remain under U.S. control. These same tactics have been used by the United States in numerous countries around the world, including Iran, Guatemala, Haiti, Chile, among many others. While these operations have often been seen as controversial and have sometimes led to tragic consequences for the countries involved, these actions have always been seen as necessary by U.S. policymakers to protect U.S. interests and maintain U.S. dominance in the world. Like I said before, brothers, life is a competition. Democracy does not exist. Equality does not exist. Are you going to be number one? Are you going to continue to be a loser? Let's continue. I mentioned it before in previous videos, but in my opinion, politics is similar to sports in that many countries are constantly battling for power on the global stage. Just like in sports, teams compete against each other to be ranked number one. Countries are also competing against each other to be the most powerful and influential in the world. Like in sports, the competition between countries is often fueled by a desire to win and to come out on top. Countries invest resources, money, manpower to enforce their power and influence in the world, just like teams invest in their players, their training facilities to improve their chance of winning. Like in sports, brother, equality cannot exist. There cannot be two winners. Someone got to win, somebody got to lose. In politics, countries engage in a variety of activities to try to gain an edge over their competitors. These activities include diplomacy, economic sanctions, military operations, and covert operations. Just like in sports, countries can employ strategies and tactics to gain an advantage over the competition. Finally, just like in sports, the competition in politics can be intense and lead to tensions and conflicts. Countries may engage in verbal or physical confrontations and even engage in proxy wars where they support opposing sides and conflicts in other countries. The United States is famous for that. Now, of course, I gotta let it be known, the United States is not the only country to engage in these tactics, but I'm simply using them as an example. I can also use the French and the British the same way. But anyways, let's continue. We got to talk about the propaganda behind the promotion of democracy and equality and freedom and human rights. Man, let's talk about it, bro. The promotion of democracy and equality, to be honest, it's nothing more than a catchphrase. That's all it is, bro. It's just a catchphrase. It doesn't have any real meaning. It doesn't mean shit, really. The promotion of democracy and equality by countries like the United States is often used as a form of propaganda to advance their own interests in the global arena. While many countries claim to promote democracy and equality as a means of improving the lives of people around the world, fuck out of here. The reality is often more complicated and more selfish in nature. In many cases, democracies are often seen as more stable and predictable than other governments that are non-democratic in form. Therefore, democratic regimes, quote unquote, are more attractive for partners for trade and other forms of cooperation. Countries may also promote democracy and equality as a way of winning the support of other countries and gaining a more favorable position in international negotiations. At the same time, countries are engaged in a competition for power and influence around the world. This competition can lead to actions that go against the ideals of democracy and equality, such as supporting dictators or engaging in covert operations to undermine political opponents. Shout out to the United States back in the 60s against Patrice Lumumba. Now let's continue. Countries may also pursue policies that benefit their own citizens at the expense of people in foreign countries. For example, the United States is known to have a history of crippling the agricultural sector in foreign countries while subsidizing their own farmers and offering products at a cheaper price and crushing the local competition, destroying long-standing self-sufficient local economies, similar to how Bill Clinton gave backdoor deals to his buddies who owned large-scale rice farms in the southern United States, destroying the Haitian agricultural sector. Now let's continue. Now we got to talk about how the media is used as a form of propaganda and manipulation to enforce power and influence and dominance around the world. Let's talk about the label of dictator. Like, you know, when they talk about, oh, this leader is a dictator, that's one of their favorite buzzwords. The label of dictator is often used by Western powers to describe leaders who support policies that go against their interests. Now, sometimes they may actually be a dictator, but many times they run a game, they're talking bullshit, and they just straight up telling lies. Now, let's continue. The label of dictator is often used as a means of delegitimizing the leader and justifying Western intervention to remove him from power. In many cases, the policies that these leaders support may be in the best interest of their own people, but they're also seen as a threat to the interests of the Western powers, particularly if they involve things like nationalizing resources or challenging the influence of Western corporations. By labeling these leaders as dictators, the Western powers can portray them as illegitimate and justify their actions aimed at removing them from power. Like I said before, this shit is a competition. Democracy does not exist. Equality does not exist. Let's continue. The label of dictator is often used selectively, with the Western power showing greater tolerance for true dictators who actually support their interests. This selective application of the label dictator can be seen as hypocritical, as it confirms that the Western powers are more concerned with protecting their own interests than actually promoting true democratic values and protecting so-called human rights. Now, lately in the 21st century, they've added to their arsenal, right? It went from promoting democracy and promoting human rights. Now we gotta protect the female rights, the women's rights, and the LGBT rights. That's the new propaganda they pull it out. You know what I'm saying? They add to the arsenal. You know, you gotta watch when the new vocabulary pops out. You know, we coming to save the women. We coming to protect the women. Nah, nigga, we coming to protect, nigga, our corporations, nigga. Yeah. Black men, don't fall for the games, man. Don't fall for the games. Let's continue. The media is often used as a tool to delegitimize leaders who go against the interests of the Western powers. This is done through a variety of tactics, including biased reporting, selective coverage, and the use of propaganda. Biased reporting involves presenting the news in a way that is slanted towards a particular point of view. In the case of leaders who go against Western interests, the media may portray them in a negative light, focusing on their flaws and shortcomings while downplaying their achievements. Sometimes Western media often tells blatant lies when reporting news on leaders who go against their interests. This can create a negative image of the leader in the minds of the people around the world, making it easier to justify actions aimed at removing him from power. Once again, I repeat, democracy does not exist, equality does not exist, morality does not exist. It's about being number one by any means necessary. That's the mindset that all black men should have. Let's continue. Selective coverage focuses on certain events while ignoring others. In the case of leaders who go against Western interests, the media may give greater coverage to negative events, such as protests, human rights abuses, while ignoring the positive developments in other areas, such as the economy. This can create a distorted view of the situation on the ground, making it easier to justify Western intervention. Propaganda involves the use of information to shape public opinion and promote a particular point of view. In the case of leaders who go against Western interests, the media may use propaganda to portray them as a threat to global stability and promote the idea that they must be removed from power. This can create a sense of urgency and a desire for action among the international public, making it easier to justify Western intervention. Now, I know we spoke about leaders overseas, international black leaders, but the United States also uses these same tactics on black men inside the borders of the United States, man. The United States has a long history of using tactics such as bias reporting, selective coverage, and propaganda to demonize black men inside the United States who had the audacity and the ambition to challenge the status quo. Let's take two men, for example, two men that I respect at a very high level, Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey, right? Two men that were demonized by the United States media and the United States government. Garvey founded the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and advocated for black self-reliance and Pan-Africanism. He was targeted by the U.S. government. The government used biased reporting and propaganda to paint Garvey as a threat to national security. A black businessman who just wanted black people to be prosperous and self-reliant, that was a threat to national security. Anyways, let's continue. As we all know, he was deported from the United States and never came back. Malcolm X was also demonized by the United States media, often portrayed as a violent, crazed, radical black man and a threat to public safety. The government used surveillance and other tactics to undermine his influence and his reputation. Malcolm X was assassinated, and at this point in the 21st century, we already know the United States was behind his untimely demise. Now let's continue. These tactics of demonizing black men are aimed at maintaining the power and dominance of the white majority. By portraying black leaders as dangerous and radical, the US media has been able to justify their actions aimed at exterminating any black man who challenges the status quo. And it's for this reason alone, in my opinion, black men should view the arena of politics and economics as a competition, because we have historically been disadvantaged in these areas over the past couple centuries. As a result, we have been excluded from the economic and political mainstream conversation. And by viewing politics and economics as a competition, this can help black men to recognize the importance of building our skills and our knowledge in these areas. By doing so, we can better compete. This can also involve gaining an understanding of political and economic systems and building networks among each other. Ultimately, bro, viewing politics and economics as a competition can help black men take control of our lives and improve our collective situation. So in my opinion, the number one thing black men got to do is change our mindset. Stop taking everything so personal, talking about, the tragedies of history. At the end of the day, bro, life is a competition, bro. They're not going to apologize. They're not going to pay reparations. They're not going to say sorry. They're not going to stop doing it. So now that we have established that they're not going to say sorry, they're not going to stop doing it, and that life is a competition, and we understand that our adversary is willing to play dirty on every single level, then black men must adapt to our environment and stop taking the high road. If they go low, we go lower. Stop this taking the high road bullshit, talking about, oh, I don't want to dominate. I don't want to be on top. I just want everybody to be equal. You living in a fantasy land, bro. You're living in a fantasy land, bro. At the end of the day, everybody else is playing for power, playing for keeps. What is the black man doing? What the fuck is the black man doing? Anyways, man, it's your boy Neferkari Desaline back in the building. Yes, indeed. Like, share, subscribe, Cash App in the description. And I'm gone. Peace.
Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in that ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching, he blocking my vision. Get for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young Money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This shit is an art and they can never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their faces.